Hello, friends, and welcome to your second consecutive Happy Monday edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. The sun isn't shining, but Town have won 2 games in a row. They're halfway towards the stated aim, the expected aim of winning 4 in a row against these kind of struggling sides. They're also halfway towards making the Hutchman £34 million, which I'm going to be in all sorts of strife if that happens. I've already sold one of my kidneys to meet a previous debt. Yes, so Mark Heath with the Hutchman and Stewie, the Dr. Watson. Hutchie, I noticed, by way of segue into your intro, you were wearing something around your neck which declared you a VIP at MK Dons on Saturday.
Yeah, it was just my EFL lanyard. That was it, really.
It said VIP on it, though, didn't it?
Yeah. You can have it if you want. I brought it home yet again. I brought it home. There was one journalist there that had a bit of an amnesty with these. We get given a little lanyard thing with our little face on it every single game, and one guy who covers MK Dons pulled about 30 of them out of his bag and returned them to the club, which I probably need to do at some point because here goes Stu. He's delving deep.
Lanyard drawer.
Just got so many of them.
Are they all from Town? They're all Town ones.
No, all away games they'll be.
Are they?
But we just get so many of them, and we try to leave them at every ground. This is a thrilling start to a podcast, isn't it? Try to leave the lanyards behind at every ground. Sometimes do, sometimes don't. There's one in the back of my car at the moment. What
would you say is the best lanyard you've ever had?
We're still going with the lanyard chat. Okay. Well, I've got nothing for you.
I've got a top. I'll do you a top 3 if you want.
Give us it.
Top 3 lanyards. I once covered the Speedway World Cup, which was sponsored by Monster Energy, and that was a really good, really fun lanyard.
Yeah.
Fulham, they'll do you a good lanyard.
Yeah. Why is that good?
Just classy.
Just nice.
Black and white, bit of red on it. And then third in the top 3 lanyards, I'd probably say the lanyard that I wore on my first day working for the Daily Mail, which I wore all day and didn't realise till the end of the day that nobody else wore one. And they gave it to me at reception my first day. I sat there, wore it all day, and everyone got to the end of the day, and everyone was like, well, "Why have you still got that on?"
Lanyard wanker, was that like?
Yeah. And then I binned it. Let's move on from lanyards.
And that name's stuck ever since.
Yeah.
So if you do see Andy Warren at games, feel free to call it. Definitely don't call him lanyard wanker. Watto, you're definitely not a lanyard wanker. You weren't wearing yours. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Good chat. Superb.
Yeah.
Let's move swiftly on, shall we, from this sizzling chat into a sizzling performance from Town. Yeah. But they did what they had to do. MK Dons at the weekend, friends. They won their second game in a row for the first time since October. First away win since November. And it's the first time they've kept 3 clean sheets in a row, I believe, since those hazy, heady days of August in the league. Who wants to kick us off then? Town won 1-0 at struggling MK Dons, a side who had been pumped 5-0 and 5-2 in the previous 2 games. Stewie, your thoughts?
Those stats kind of sum up the importance of this as a victory. Didn't really matter how it came. Ipswich just need to get on that winning train to get that momentum going again. And they managed to do it. Sam Morsy, the captain, comes up with a real captain's moment, a real moment of quality, but also it was a goal born out of desire to intercept high up the pitch, to drive into space, to take on the shot. Real hammer finish from the edge of the box. And as Kieran McKenna said afterwards, Ipswich are going to need their big players to step up in the big moments if this season is going to end the way we hope it is. So, good goal to win it. Should have killed it off in the second half. Didn't, but the clean sheet is a very important one. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from this, is that Ipswich have got back to keeping some clean sheets again.
Hutchie, what did you make of it all?
Job done. Really. I know there'll be some people that see teams have conceded 5 in back-to-back games and fancy a slice of that. Not fussed about that. They got the job done. I saw quite a lot of things that I liked from Ipswich there. They did enough in all areas of the pitch to win it. They'll need to play better than that in other games this season, but just getting the ball rolling when you're pushing a car along, and I've pushed a lot of cars, You just got to get it moving. Then the momentum's easy from there. You can keep it rolling, and they've got the car pushed off. And
I've witnessed that.
Hutchie pushing a car.
Yeah, I was in it.
Really? But
Yeah,
when was this? Go on.
I don't know. We pulled up in a petrol station one time. We were a bit short. We were a bit shy of the pump. I don't know why Andy had stopped a bit short, but instead of just being a normal person and starting the car again
Yeah.
and driving it forward on a foot or two, he just said, "Take the handbrake off." Off he got, and he just got round the back and pushed it on like he was in some world's strongest man competition.
Environment reasons, mate. Didn't
You
need to
don't
start that. Didn't need to start it up again for that level of movement.
You don't get the boulders that Hutchie's got for carbs unless you push the odd car here and there.
I live on a hill as well.
Very powerful lower body, Hutchie, I believe. What do we make of the team, friends? It was as expected, wasn't it? Was there any significance, do you think, in Hurst starting his second straight game?
Is there any significance in that? Probably is starting to show that, as we've said all along, they've chased Hurst for a long time. Finally got their man in January. I think if you were to say to me who's going to start more games out of him and Ladapo between the end of the season, it will be Hurst for that reason. And they're obviously trying to get games in him to get him up to speed, fitness-wise, sharpness-wise, having not played a lot for Blackburn. I don't think that suddenly means he's going to play every week. After the game, I thought Hurst was, for me, just about the pick of the Ipswich players for me at the weekend. I thought he had a really good game, and I'm liking more and more from what I see of him as he gets up to speed. But McKenna was very quick when kind of praise came Hurst's way post-match to say, yeah, we've got two strikers in form at the moment that bring different qualities to the table. So, I thought he played well, Hurst, but they've now got, hopefully going to get to a stage where they've got two strikers that are in form and can be utilised accordingly when the right opposition comes along.
He seemed to split opinion, Hurst, at the weekend, didn't he? From what I could see, I thought he had a good game. He didn't. There were times where the touch was a little bit loose, but he was under a lot of his play was heavily contested, wasn't it? He was under a lot of pressure at all times, and I thought he gave Ipswich kind of a good platform. There was one moment I really liked, actually, a little knockdown that he put. I think it was into the path of Chaplin, who was coming into the box. But that, we don't see little knockdown headers from Ipswich strikers all that often. That was a new dimension that I quite liked. He always works hard. He leads that front line kind of defensive press very well, and he had a couple of threatening moments of his own in the second half as well. Yeah, I thought his performance at Burnley was a notch above what he did at MK at the weekend, but you can see why they've tried to sign him. He's certainly not a complete player, but you can see why they were so keen on him. I thought he contributed to that game really well.
We should also praise Sam Morsy, shouldn't we? I know, Stuart, you said Hurst was the pick of the bunch for you, but Hutchie, you gave Morsy man of the match. And we were talking last week on the show, the only show we actually did last week, friends. Apologies for that. And we got a bit discombobulated towards the end of the week. Pressers was moved, our plans fell apart, and we couldn't do a second show. So apologies. But Stu, on that show we did last week, you said that Hutchie was betting every week at the start of the season on Morsy scoring, and we hadn't seen a lot of that in recent times. And then he duly pops up with a bit of a screamer, Hutchie.
Yeah, the interception was just as big a part of that as the finish, I think. Getting ahead of his man in there and striding forward with it. It opened up for him a little bit. I think he considered the pass, and then another touch came, considered the pass again, and then it's like, actually, they're backing off me here. Let's just pop it in the bottom corner. And he did. I think he's been really good recently. I think there was a slight, by his high standards, there was a slightly flat spell maybe at the beginning of the year over Christmas, potentially. But of late, I think he's been very, very good. And they need him to be very, very good because he's a really important member of the team. He's carried the midfield at a time when they've been down to the barest of bones. And it was nice to see him pop that winner in because he's definitely capable of that. I'd like to see a couple more of those in big moments before the end of it all.
It's been a proper captain's response since Bristol Rovers, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Where you had the confrontation, the altercation at the end of the match with the fans. Quick to put out a really mature, articulate apology the following day, nipped that in the bud very quickly, and has more importantly, responded on the pitch since then. The top players, the elite players, are not just about their quality, it's about their consistency. That's what separates the best. And Sam Morsy, in general, delivers week in, week out to a high standard. And perhaps we've all got, and maybe I've been the same, get a little bit complacent about that he's generally 7 out of 10 at least every week. Yeah, Andy's right. He's probably had a slight dip along with a number of members of the team during that little spell where the wins were hard to come by. But yeah, he's the heartbeat of this team on and off the pitch. And that's why it was really, really good to see him not only score that goal, but perform the way he did.
We should also reflect, we're talking about Morsy. Actually, you put something online this morning. Very excitingly, you told us that Morsy was walking a tightrope wall in terms of yellow cards in the group chat this morning. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? But as we're talking about his importance to the side, what's his situation?
What you've done there is you've jumped on a typo in WhatsApp and run with it. Obviously, tightrope walk is what you do.
Yeah.
Look, we've known he's been on 9 bookings for ages now. Since the Cambridge game, I think he picked up his 9th. He's got to get through 4 more to avoid that 2-game ban. And if I'm honest, I think I'd probably back him to do it. We've spoken before about how I'm quite impressed with his in-game management of yellow card situations. When he knows where the line is, he'll play all the way up to that line and is then able to walk back from it and stay within it. He's done that. I think it's 5 without a booking now. He's got to do 4 more, otherwise he'll get a 2-game ban. If he waits all the way till game 37, that then rules him out of the Barnsley and the Derby games. So they're big. It's a big thing because he's such an important member of the team. But I think he can do it. The journalist who covers Wigan this morning sort of mentioned during his I found a run of Wigan yellow cards that he went like 14 games without a yellow card, and then the Wigan reporter told me after that was 14. Game 14 of that was the deadline. He played all the way up to the deadline, didn't get it, and then got booked in the first game after it didn't matter anymore. So it's massive if they can keep him available because he's so important to the team, and I honestly think he'll make it through. And you can't accuse him of backing off in his game, I don't think, even though he's been one away for a few now.
McKenna was kind of quick to highlight that after the game at the weekend, actually, about how he's so good at sort of controlling himself and tempering his game and adapting his game. And that's probably something that's also gone under the radar in how he's had to change his role in the team several times this season. We talked about the goal threat and he sort of changed. When McKenna first arrived, we suddenly saw the shackles come off and he was being encouraged to burst into the box late. And that's when Andy was slapping down the money on him to score every week. And then his roles kind of changed a bit at times this season. Certainly when Lee Evans has been out of the side, he's in his second sort of injury spell now. Lee Evans, Morsy then becomes more of the sitter, and Cameron Humphreys or Luongo, when he's come on, then maybe are the ones that play that more sort of attacking role. So yeah, there's probably a lot more that goes on with Sam Morsy's performances than first meets the eye. So he is their key man. He is their talisman. I think we said it before a ball was kicked this season, and it's proven to be the case.
Hopefully he does make it without getting a booking. But if he doesn't, we saw potentially, I mean, obviously Humphrey came off at half time, didn't we? And Luongo came on. What was the reasoning for that? I've missed that. There's no injury, was there, to Humphreys?
No, Humphreys got booked just before half time. So
Right.
The plan was always, I mean, Cameron Humphreys has played a lot of football in a short space of time over the last month. Been signs at times that fatigue has been setting in for the young man. Obviously, I think the plan was always to get Luongo on around the hour mark, but Humphreys picking up a booking just before half time kind of sped up that process. So they made the change at the break, and Massimo Luongo had another impressive cameo. I think he played a big part in Ipswich stepping their game up after the restart.
We shouldn't be too surprised about that, really, should we? He's a player with real kind of real pedigree and real quality. The knock on him is he fit enough, and that was the knock that he arrived with. He's been available for a few games now, and if he can prove that he's available and reliable, I think he'll probably take over as the starter at some point in the very not too distant future. I would think, and that could be really important, sort of going down the stretch for Ipswich from here.
Just going back to the theme of tightropes, if you're interested in documentaries and you like tightrope walking, watch Man on Wire, which is the documentary about the guy who crazily put a tightrope between the World Trade Centers. This is about mid-70s, and then walked across them. And there's a famous picture of him lying down on the wire, which is highly illegal at the time. So it's the whole documentary about how he trained for it, how they actually got up there, how they managed to get past all security and do that. Fantastic documentary. And speaking of tightropes, boys,
sorry, I've just trampled all over your segue there.
You have.
Watch the documentary, not the film. They did then turn it into a dramatized Hollywood film, but the actual documentary with footage of the time. Seek that one out, please.
It's brilliant. And now just ignore the fact that Stu's trampled all over my segue. I'll go back to the segue. Speaking of tightropes, boys, Ipswich Town walked a tightrope, didn't they, on 10 minutes? With those 5 shots in 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on who you believe. Way, what a sequence that was.
Yes, it was. I was waiting for Andy to jump in, but he was waggling his tongue around still. So I'll go. Unbelievable. It was one in the press box. We're all sort of looking at each other in disbelief, trying to sort of work out the sequence of events. But watching it back, I think it's 5 shots in the space of 5-10 seconds. Andy, was it
7.8 seconds?
Okay, there you go. Official numbers. Proper pinball moment in the box for Ipswich Town. It's one of those where you think, how on earth has that not gone in?
Especially Lecco. I mean,
a combination of a dreadful miss from Lecco, who's about 2 yards out at the back post, and full credit to Luke Wolfenden, a brilliant block on the line, just flings himself. I think he's actually in the net when he throws himself at the ball. So that's two big goal line clearances from Wolfenden in the space of a few weeks. You remember it was him who cleared the ball onto the line at Bristol Rovers as well. But that was a remarkable sequence.
Wolfenden didn't celebrate by shaking the post again, did he?
He didn't have time this time. He needed to get back up this time. 2 good saves from Christian Walton as well. But I think I read something that was, I think MK Dons had all of their XG in that period, pretty much,
right?
But bar the odd little thing here and there. So in terms of XG, that was it for MK Dons, and the Town survived.
Previously, we've had scores of 1-0. We've felt a bit ropey, haven't we, about Town being able to protect the lead, perhaps, certainly in the most recent run. But it sounds to me like you boys were quite confident they were going to see this out, Stewie, which is a good thing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, which is why I say the clean sheet is the thing that encourages me the most, because we've been talking for quite a while now about, it sounds a really weird thing to say about the division's top scorers, but it has been a recurring theme about maybe not being ruthless and clinical enough. You could even say it about the Forest Green game, to be honest. That game should have been a higher scoreline. This one certainly should have been a higher scoreline. Nathan Broadhead, probably the most guilty party in the second half, with putting a rebound chance over from 6 yards out. So, as McKenna said afterwards, the bedrock has to be clean sheets. So, for Ipswich to get 3 in a row, I felt it's natural when you get to the latter stages. You kind of think, is it going to be just one long ball into the box or a deflected shot from outside the box that we've seen a few times? But I thought their game management was really good. They looked like they were in control of what they were doing. There was a couple of cheap fouls that they gave away, but in general, they kept the ball. A couple of times they made sensible decisions to sort of run it to the corner and run down the clock. So, what Andy said about XG there makes a bit of a nonsense. So that stat sometimes, if the XG shows that MK had 5 shots on target or whatever, but if they all came within 5 seconds, beyond that little moment, they didn't threaten a great deal, did they?
The only time I was nervous was when Josh McEachran was standing over that free kick. This is just the ingrained stuff, I guess, but just sensing a flick off a shoulder from the wall and Walton standing there and it goes in. But Walton caught that one really well. I think MK ran out of ideas, really.
Going back to Minty's miss, by the way, Stu, I was thinking when I saw that would have been a classic time to play that. My gran could have scored that cliche card, wouldn't it? Run it back, bring on someone's gran, see if she can bury that rebound.
Ooh, tough for a Nan, that one. The ball was a bit off the floor.
That is a great bit of punditry.
I'd have played that card probably for the Freddie Ladapo header.
Against
stoppage time
Green.
against Forest Green. Nan's just got to let it hit her there, and then it goes in.
MK would have played it with Lecco's chance, wouldn't they?
I'd love to see that actually happen. I mean, bring on a Nan to try and score a diving header in the case of Freddie Ladapo. That would be brilliant. Teeth go flying.
And if you're Luke Wolfenden as well, you're probably not going to be chucking yourself at the Nan with gusto either, are you? It's going to be.
He should be. If I was his manager, I'd be furious if he wasn't. You play the Nan. You don't play. You just play. You play what's in front of you.
Play the Nan. Tough for a Nan. That I love that bit of punditry. Actually, that's a great quote. We kind of got away from those cliche cards, but I'd like to see him come back. Certainly, there's been opportunities to play the Nan card in the last couple of weeks, as we say there. Anything else to mention, friends, as we move away from the Nan? Cliche
MK
card?
Dons might have played the could have played all day and not scored card as well. I mean, if they might have counteracted that as well, and that might have been a double playing of the cliche cards.
Imagine that
potentially. Good. Dead air is good air.
I was waiting for Hutchie to say something. I thought he was going to come in with another cliche, but no, it's okay. I'll take it from here. Anything else to mention then, friends, from MK? What about the pitch? Obviously, we went into this game talking about the pitch being unacceptable, in the words of England women's manager. It did look like it was cutting up from the highlights.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect the game too much.
It's clearly not in good nick. Clearly, I think it was quite slow. The ball didn't always bounce particularly well, but it did. I don't think it impacted the game. I don't think you're certainly not having. There's no moment in that game where you're looking at it thinking the pitch has had any kind of impact on how the game went. But it's clearly not in a very good state at all in certain areas.
Any tales from the road before we move on from MK Dons? You've got your VIP lanyard. What's VIP treatment like at MK Dons in the press room? What are you getting?
Well,
it's funny you should ask. Actually, we toyed with getting some. You never quite know what you're going to get when you go to different grounds, especially at League One level. We risked it. We went in. We thought we'll see what we get at MK Dons. Might be literally a glass of water. Might be a feast. You don't know. Let me tell you, it was a feast. We came in. We were sitting there, and in came a pizza delivery guy with
12. There were 12.
12 boxes of Papa John's large pizzas.
It's what we've been waiting for, Hutchie. You expected to get it in the actual trophy, but you get it MK Dons in a League One game.
Well, it turns out the Papa John's is actually in the stadium. I've done some subsequent research. The vendor is within the walls of the stadium, so makes sense.
What was your weapon of choice? What were the options?
There was a meaty one,
and
a cheese and tomato one.
How many slices did you have?
5.
Whoa, yes. Fill your boots, son. Why not?
Might have been 6.
Superb.
Yeah, I was in that ballpark figure as well. I felt a little bit sleepy during the game as well. It was just Ipswich were 1-0 up. I felt pretty comfortable with them. I was just when you just get belly was full. Was ready for a little, ready for a little snooze, if I'm honest.
Was there still some at half time? Had it gone? That's a shame because cold pizza is almost as good as warm pizza, isn't it?
One thing I would say about Papa John's, I'm not an experienced Papa John's eater. I'll be honest. The pizzas came with a little tub of butter, like it's pure butter. Like
not garlic butter.
Slightly garlicky butter, but it was basically just butter. It's not for me. I don't need to dip my crust in butter. I love a garlic dip, but not not pure butter.
It was very viscous. Let's say
it?
it's very different to what you're getting with the Domino's. Thick, sludgy. You could see the
Poor.
calories dripping from it. Even we drew the line there.
Just as an aside, boys, do you know anyone who eats their pizza with a knife and fork?
I mean, I have eaten a pizza with a knife and fork.
Why?
I would never eat a pizza with a knife and fork out of
Were you in polite
a pizza box.
Was that like?
No, like some restaurants or something. I've eaten a pizza with a knife and fork before, plenty of times. But I'd never do that with a
I feel like I don't know.
Papa John's pizza.
Do you go with the fold? Is that your technique? The fold over? How do you eat your pizza? Just stuff it into my mouth.
Yeah, pick it up, and give it a nibble. I don't know if I'll analyse it next time. I've not really thought about it.
You've got to be cognizant of tip sag, haven't you? Sometimes with pizza, you need to kind of lift the tip, as it were, to get it in. What?
Nothing.
Anyway, moving on, shall we, boys? From pizza and tip sag to the bigger picture, which we have to talk about with 13 games left, don't we, Hutchie? We have to talk about this, don't we?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the bigger picture? Because clearly Plymouth in second, we speculated they might be the ones that fall away under the pressure of the run-in. And they got tonked at Peterborough, 5-2. And there's also a coming storm running behind Town called Barnsley, who ripped the Rams apart 4-1 in the big game of the weekend, and now sit with 2 games in hand, 4 points behind Town.
Mm-hmm.
They are clearly going to be a threat, you'd imagine, on the run-in. Derby now have only won one of their last 4, considering they were going like a train at one point. So how are we feeling about the bigger picture today, Stewie and Hutchie?
I don't feel any different about it today than I did at the start of this run of games that they need to win all 4 of. I'll be on. Ipswich need to win all 4 of these games and then see where they're at. If they can get to the end of them with the 4 wins, it could look so much brighter, couldn't it? Clearly, the 1 game swing of Peterborough battering Plymouth is great. They have to take these points back off them at some time, but there's this run of 4 games, and then the next 5 for Ipswich are all against top 8 teams. That's where I'm interested. Par for the course for Ipswich should be now. They've done the tougher parts of it, I think. The road game, the 2 home games now, win those. Then it'll be a real sprint for the line, I think, but with a very tough start for Ipswich. Maybe a sprint for the line, but Ipswich have hurdles for the first 50 metres of the 100 metres.
Is it a sprint for a line or a slug for the line? It's like there's 2 boxers that have gone deep into the fight, and then it's just we've got nothing left. We're just swinging punches by that point. I don't know, but yeah, the last 2 games, let's not get too carried away. Forest Green were pretty ranked bad. They're bottom of the table. They're heading for League 2.
Go on, use the words you wanted to use.
Come on.
No, I'm not going to do a Ross Halls here. Where
okay,
won't say the naughty word. They were poor, and Ipswich dispatched them fine. Then how do you back it up? They did that to Morecambe. They went and laid an egg at Cambridge. This time, they didn't. That's hopefully a sign of sort of lessons learned in terms of maintaining focus. Obviously, there wasn't a cup game in between this time, but they didn't actually play that great, did they, first half at MK Dons, let's be honest. So for them to have sort of come through that test and got the win is good. But as Andy says, it doesn't really change the bigger picture. My feelings around that Bristol Rovers game have probably softened over time, and I kind of sense that Kieran McKenna has just got a little bit sharp in terms of the reaction to that game, because he's right. If Ipswich had been going along quite nicely in this season and they'd gone away to Bristol Rovers and drawn 0-0, you'd go, okay, tough place to go. They sat deep. It was a 0-0 draw. It's a clean sheet. Move on to the next one. But I still think it was the right time for us to do that kind of soul-searching analysis of where they're at and why the slide is happening, because it was 4 wins in 15 league games at that stage. And that was a fair sample size for me for us to be talking about some of the deficiencies that had led them to that point. And as we keep saying, it was born out of a longer term sort of deep rooted scars that we've seen. And Kieran McKenna's been off at the Nou Camp and Old Trafford and seeing things while we've been watching various other stuff here. Same with Mark Ashton as well. They've not lived through that process. And I know that Mark Ashton has referenced in the interview that he'd done with Matt Holland, like, actually, it's been really useful for me to get some quite articulate, fair, balanced emails from fans that have said, look, we love everything that you're doing here. We're enjoying the football, but you need to understand where our headspace is at as Ipswich Town fans over the last little while. So I think there's a bit of a meeting between the middle in terms of where the fans' heads are at, where the kind of the people driving the football club is at, and there probably needs to be a bit of a meeting in the middle of an acknowledgement of the past, what they're trying to do here, and hopefully it's still time for it all to come together.
Never been in doubt for me, boys. I think we've been far too negative. Clearly, top two's still on, isn't it? 2 wins in a row now. Things are all rosy. We're not really going to learn a lot, in all seriousness, in these next couple of games, are we? It's really after these next couple of games are out of the way, then we're actually going to find out exactly where we are with Ipswich Town, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think the top two is still on. I still think it's a hard job from here. They're still 5 points back. They've still, but win these next two. Do what's required. That 4 wins in a row, and then you're in a place where you can launch into that and really prove a point in those 5 games against top 8 teams in a row. That's where they'll make their money and do their business this season. I think they can. They have to get through these two with the maximum points. Otherwise, they're just going to make things harder for themselves.
I think psychologically, you talked about Derby, now winning 1 in 4, and Plymouth losing heavily at the weekend. Rewind a week or so, and I think there was this feeling that, well, none of them are ever going to lose again, because it just felt like all of the teams at the top were on these winning runs, and everybody has sticky spells at some stage, and you just hope that Ipswich kind of got theirs out the way earlier, and they'll finish with maybe their best run is the one that they finished with. And if your purple patch is going to come at any time, you want it to come down the business end, down the back straight, don't you? So that's got to be the hope. Others weren't going to maintain those levels of form. Plymouth, as we know, the goalkeeper's out, Cooper, other injuries as well. Wickham losing, change of manager there. I think that's quelled any minor fears that, we're looking down to 7th and how that could sort of bunch up. I think we've all sort of cooled our jets on that front. So, those results elsewhere, I think, have added to a sort of a sense of renewed mood, just as much as Ipswich getting the job done themselves in the last 2 games.
Surely there was never any real fear about missing the playoffs. I know that got talked about at certain points of things not being fantastic for Ipswich, but they were always going to. That's come on. As much as I would be that would be tempered by seeing you walking out in shorts and socks alongside Sam Morsy at Fleetwood, having missed the playoffs. So I didn't want to see that, and I don't think there was ever any danger of that. And I think the top 6 will finish as it is. And I think you're right, Stu. If Ipswich can sort of get going like a train now in this run, like Derby have, like Barnsley are in the middle of now, if Ipswich can produce that inside the last 10 games, I think they'll get promoted. But we don't know that they can do that yet.
No, and the reasons to believe that aren't because they've just beaten Forest Green and MK Dons. The reasons to believe that is from what we've seen of Nathan Broadhead so far, from what we've seen of George Hurst getting better, from the little bits we've seen of Massimo Luongo, to think that they have actually upgraded their starting 11 in January. And, it's just a case of now getting that starting 11 settled, building that chemistry. They're the reasons to believe that things can snowball from here, that they've improved that team in the January transfer window. And I think I'm starting to see more and more signs that is the case.
Those games, the Barnsley, Bolton, Derby away, Wickham at home, those games are going to be the key ones, aren't they? The really interesting ones where we don't know a lot as to where things might fall. Boys, just by way of moving on, MK Dons, last season, one of the best teams in the league, and this season they're on all sorts of relegation strife. What did you make of them? Clearly they've changed manager, they've been struggling. Thoughts on them before we move on?
I think they're in trouble. I'll be honest. I think that what is there, like 6-7 teams down there that might obviously one of the one team that's might have one eye over their shoulder. Oxford have acted by changing sacking Carl Robinson. Sorry, but there's 6 or 7 teams down there that are all going to be looking over their shoulder. MK will be one of those. I'm sure of that. I can see why people are talking about them having improved recently. I think they've got some decent players who have played but not starred at higher levels in there now that are at least working towards a way of playing. But didn't seem an awful lot of spark about them to me. I think they're going to have to slug out something to stay up down there.
I think they've got a chance. I think they've got a chance because I think to get yourself out of a relegation battle, you need to be able to score goals. And they look like a team that will be able to score goals with that front three of Isa, Leko and Kai. They've got some pace and they've got a counter threat if they can just sort things out a little bit at the back, if they can ally a bit of solidity to that. They've got a chance. They've just come through, obviously, a tricky run of games now of Bolton, Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich. They'll take a lot from the game at the weekend. Ipswich deserved to win and did, but they'll be playing some inferior opposition and I'm sure they can get out of it. And just on the talk of sort of playing inferior opposition, it's natural for us. We're doing it. We're talking about, it's these games coming up. It's the Bolton, it's the Derby games that are going to define this. And McKenna will not allow this and the players can't allow this. There's a job to be done in these next two games. Let's not forget Ipswich have dropped points at home to Lincoln, to Cheltenham, to Fleetwood. They can't. Those are the games that have hurt Ipswich the most this season. They cannot allow that to happen again in these next two games.
And if you look at Burton, actually, just on that subject, they've won 3 of their last 5, so they're actually not in not too bad a form, and they've come out of the drop zone, haven't they? They've moved themselves up out of that. So, yeah, certainly not an easy game on Saturday, but definitely a game that Town should win. Oxford United, before we move on, any thoughts on that? Surprised at what's happened there? Because they've been one of the best teams in the league for a couple of seasons now. Obviously made the playoffs a couple of times under Robinson.
I'm not surprised. I really like Carl Robinson's football in certain situations. I know we've probably seen the worst of it at Ipswich because he come to kind of Portman Road and they have like wasted time and things like that. But he seems like a bit of a shelf life manager. Same with MK Dons. He had them doing some really good things. It comes to an end. Oxford had been there a long time. They'd had flirtations with the playoffs and some playoff defeats along the way. I think good things come to an end. I think he'll pop up again in League One. He'll put a good team on the field that in the right circumstances can play some really good football. But I'll be honest, when this may seem really weird, but when they allowed Matt Taylor to join Port Vale in January, that felt like the beginning of the end of kind of Carl Robinson at Oxford to me. That was kind of a changing of the guard almost, and I guess the manager is part of that. He'll pop up in League One again, and he'll get a team towards the top end of the division again as well.
Speaking of managers in trouble, by the way, I noticed a certain Mr. Paul Cook is under pressure at Chesterfield. They've on a terrible run of form. They've not won for more than a month, I don't think, and have slid down the pecking order in the National League. So, yeah, interesting. Keep an eye on that from afar. See how Cookie, if you can get out of that. Friends, should we move on? Should we move on to something sad, but also a chance to kind of celebrate the life of someone? John Motson died last week, who is as iconic as it gets in terms of media and football in this country, and obviously had a special connection to Ipswich Town. A secret Town fan, grew up in Suffolk, went to Colford School, a posh school just down the road from Bury, and used to watch Ipswich Town as a boy. I think he used to write a column in the Town programme as well. Have you got any? I thought it was worth mentioning on an Ipswich Town podcast. Any kind of special memories of John Motson?
Wouldn't say I've got any that just leap off the page of like, this is my John Motson memory, but he was just always there, wasn't he? During certainly people of kind of my age of just what and older, obviously, of just every weekend he'd either be on a live game, certainly on Match of the Day, just always there, a voice that accompanied so much. I also think he commentated on Ipswich's game at Helsingborg in the UEFA Cup, which I quite enjoy. I remember thinking that was quite fun at that when I was a young boy, having John Motson on an Ipswich game. But yeah,
I interviewed him once, which is a thoroughly weird experience. I've interviewed 3 people, I would say, with iconic voices. He was one, John Pill was another, and Sir David Frost was another. But Motson was the weirdest because I interviewed him over the phone. I met the other two in person, and I interviewed Motson over the phone. And I made the mistake as a young cub reporter. This is when I was working a night shift on a Tuesday night or something. I made the mistake of ringing him when there was football on, and he was not happy. He said, "Come on, pal, it's Champions League, whatever it was." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He said, "Call back at half time," which I duly did. I can't even remember what the story was about. Something, I'd imagine it was something to do with town. Anyway. And at halftime, he was in a much better mood. But it was just so weird to interview someone with such an iconic voice, but not doing what they're known for. So I was asking him questions, and he was sort of asking me questions about how I was and that kind of stuff. But in John Motson's voice, it was so surreal.
Was it his voice, or was it?
Yeah,
Does he have a commentary voice?
No, it was. That's how he speaks. I mean, obviously, I assume there's slight changes in tone and pitch and all that kind of stuff, but that is exactly how he spoke. So to him asking me, "How are you doing?" that kind of stuff, but in John Motson's voice, just bizarre, really surreal moment. So have you got any particular memories of Motson?
No, same as Andy. Really, it's just the voice of football growing up. I was one of those scenarios where it popped into a group chat yesterday, and so in a group chat when it happened, and someone had just put sort of John Motson with a heartbreak emoji or something, and that was the first I'd sort of knew of it, and I just stopped with one of those ones that just sort of stops you in your tracks a little bit, really. Just a real iconic face and voice, probably more in latter years. Remember him seeing on sort of Football Focus on a Saturday morning. They'd always cross over to him in sort of, more of his latter years. He's just someone that was just consumed by football, wasn't he? We meet, so, and we're probably the same, really. People that when you work in football, people tend to be kind of obsessed with it, and John Motson clearly just loved it from the biggest games, but still, even towards the end of his life, just by all accounts, going to football matches all over the country. We're almost sort of claiming him a bit as an Ipswich boy, but I think there's a lot of clubs up and down the land that are sort of claiming that, oh yeah, John had a soft spot for us. He was always here, and he's just a man who clearly loved football, and that shone through. I think in the Gary Lineker tribute on Match of the Day, they talked about, he was one of these people that would glaze over a bit if you moved away from the subject of football in the general conversation, because that's all he wanted to talk about. So very sad.
Yeah. Moving from something sad but celebratory to just something daft, boys. I thought we'd finish today by talking about the best sporting excuses. This is inspired by Conor Benn from the world of boxing last week. I don't know if you've seen this, but Conor Benn had failed 2 drugs tests ahead of his fight with Chris Eubank Jr. He tested positive for something called clomiphene, which is a masking agent for steroids. Originally claimed it was a tainted supplement, that classic excuse, and then moved on to the reason he actually got cleared by the WBC last week. Extraordinary that he'd eaten too many eggs. He had a highly elevated consumption of eggs, I think was the actual term used in the report. He was claiming that he'd eaten 40 plus a week. Clearly, an athlete, you need your protein. He'd taken it to the nth degree. I mean, it's complete nonsense, to be fair. There's no way someone's Googled that and seen that somewhere, somehow, some hens get injected with this clomiphene, and they've gone, well, let's go with this one, shall we?
Okay, is that how he said? Is that how it said it's happened? Because the hen that laid the egg has been injected with the drug.
It's not a naturally occurring thing in eggs, but apparently some places hens are injected with this to help them lay more, or what, I don't know. Anyway, so that's where it's come from. It's akin to another boxing one. Canelo Alvarez, when he tested positive, said he'd eaten contaminated meat, because in Mexico, where he's from, beef does have like a steroid injected into it to make them big and strong. It's well known. So that was his contaminated meat excuse. And Tyson Fury, when he popped hot, said that he'd eaten a wild boar that hadn't been neutered. It was still entire, and therefore had too much testosterone in it. So these are classic excuses, boys. And I just thought we'd maybe have a bit of fun just by reflecting on some good ones. Have you got any to throw into the mix? Because the obvious one for me is that Alex Ferguson, when Man United had to wear grey, I think it was at Southampton all those years ago, came out after the game and said they couldn't see each other. That was brilliant. Any to throw into the mix?
They changed kit at half time in that game, didn't they?
Yeah. Still lost.
Excuses.
I've got an absolute. Shall I continue? Because the one that I remember most from my childhood, there was a sprinter called Dennis Mitchell. don't know if you ever watched athletics. This is in the kind of golden era of sprinting when there was Linford Christian, Carl Lewis, and Dennis Mitchell was in that kind of mix. And he popped hot for testosterone. He had hugely elevated levels of testosterone off the top of my head. And his excuse was that the night before the drugs test was his wife's birthday. So he drunk, I think he drunk 10 bottles of Budweiser and made love to her 6 times in that night. And the actual quote was, "It was her birthday. The lady deserved a treat." And that was his actual defense. That's why he was so raging with testosterone the following day, beer and sex. Anything else to throw into the mix?
I can remember that this isn't as exciting, but it's all I can think of, and that's all you're going to get. There was an NFL quarterback called Donovan McNabb who had a thoroughly underwhelming game for Philadelphia, which ended in a tie after overtime. And he made a couple of mistakes, made some interesting decisions at the end of overtime. And then at the end of it, he said that he didn't realize there were ties in the NFL, and that's why he made the decision that he did.
Amazing.
That's not great.
Well, yeah, but still staggering. Any from you, Watson?
What, like Larson Torre didn't realise there were that you
throwing
couldn't have a tie in the League Cup. Wasn't there one in dart? You might know this. You're more of a darts man than I. Wasn't there one about complaints about farting on stage recently?
There's been all sorts of things. Yeah, there's been all sorts of things on stage in darts with farting and wind. Oh yeah, there was one player that I couldn't play very well today because there was a window open somewhere in the venue and it blew my darts off. Of course, yeah. There's a lot of farting on the Oki, I think.
I was thinking also, Stu, on the back of this, we could test the theory because obviously you're very much into your training and your protein and stuff. Would you try and consume 40 eggs in a week and then see if we can test you for clomiphene afterwards?
No, thank you.
I'm not sure Andy will thank me at the end of that week when we spend a lengthy amount of time in a car together.
Yeah, if you are doing it, it's for a home game at the weekend, all right?
Tremendous.
I'll do it.
Wonderfully creative. If you could, I mean, it's in the name of the job, Stewie. Name of science and sport to see if you can.
Then I could probably do the darts one as well off the back of that as well. So.
Just run through them all.
See if it puts Andy off his player ratings.
Yeah, his head's gone. Anything else to mention, friends? It's been a shorter one today, but still a good one. I feel we've covered quite a lot of ground and had some fun while we're doing it. Anything else to mention?
We should just mention the crowd at MK, which was obviously huge. But I would, if my memory isn't playing tricks on me, that was so much louder this year than 7,000 Ipswich fans were at Stadium MK a year ago. Obviously, a year ago the game wasn't great; it was 0-0, and it wasn't a great game, I don't think. But those fans were incredibly loud at the weekend, very, very loud indeed. I think that the acoustics at the stadium help, and so they should, because the Winkleman is an acoustic man. He's involved in the music industry, and I think that stadium was quite heavily sculpted to help with things like that. But very, very loud, and it's quite a special sight actually, with the small, tiny little pockets of MK fans here and there, and then a big wall of blue, which was good.
Did we see a Stuart Watson inflatable as someone threatened a few weeks ago on Mailbag? Were there any Watson sex dolls floating around?
There was one that looked like Stu.
Was there?
Are you going to say it was the penis?
No.
Okay.
Beach ball.
Thought I'd get in there first. Yeah, that was an incredible sight. That was you had to just stop and look at that wall of Ipswich Town fans, and there's a great picture that the club have put out of McKenna on the touchline, just kind of staring and gazing up at them. He talked about from the minute they got off the coach at the weekend and the number of fans that greeted them and really giving them a lift. So as much as we've talked about the ingrained fear of it all going wrong at Ipswich Town and the nervousness that could creep in and everything like that, these Ipswich fans are a credit to the club, and they turn up week after week, home and away, and I think they're undoubtedly still a positive force behind this football team. They leave all of those fears at the door when the first whistle goes, and they get behind their team. And as long as the team keep giving them something, then that can be a bit of a powerful symbiotic relationship, I think, for these big games ahead. Certainly for these home games, Saturday, Tuesday.
Obviously, we'll preview them later in the week. Hutchie, what's going on over here? Sorry, Karen.
No. Carry on.
What's going on over your right-hand shoulder, Hutchie? Look, you've got some kind of production line going with shirts. You've got your usual rack of shirts, but there seems to be shirts on the bed as well. Is this some kind of packaging and production? What's going on?
No, run out of hangers. The rack's full.
So what you got on the bed there? What's the one that's been relegated to the...
There's about 6 of them on the bed there. There's, the rack is full. No more can be... The one that you can probably see is a 10, 12-year-old AC Milan shirt with Seedorf on the back.
Nice. Oh, sorry, Benson's here.
Loves a bit of Clarence Seedorf.
He's a big fan of Clarence Seedorf. What's the shirt? Play guess the shirt. Is it? It looks like
that should be easy.
Roma, is it?
Yeah.
Boom. Heath got one.
I'm concerned this is getting out of hand because before we hit record on this, Andy was telling us how he'd just purchased £10 worth of Southampton signed memorabilia. And he doesn't know what it is or who signed it, but he got it.
He needs it.
Yep.
He's going to move it on.
Yep.
At profit.
How do you want it?
I don't. You couldn't tell me who signed it.
Yeah, I will find out. The information's available. I acted fast and have secured the merchandise.
How is your little cottage industry going, Hutchie?
Very well, thank you. I need to have a chat with you about something afterwards.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. Super. Right,
so well, he's quit.
I'm now making more money from my sideline. I'm going to do it full time. Fair enough. Friends, thanks for listening today. Apologies again that we didn't bring you a second show last week. That won't happen again. It was our own fault. We got, as I say, discombobulated by movement of pressers and plans and time off and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, apologies once more. Air fryer chat, friends. I made Kung Po chicken. I say I made. The wife made and I watched Kung Po chicken in the air fryer last night. Superb. Again, I'll share the recipe on Instagram. And also the usual plea, please, friends, to support our sponsors. Use code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. And also support our friends at Ginger Pickle. If you need your Google ads elevating, your SEO optimized, get involved with Ginger Pickle. If you like your pickle ginger, Google Ginger Pickle and get Tony Southgate involved in all that sort of good stuff. Digital marketing. Right, friends, anything else to mention, boys, before we take our leave and get on with the week?
No other business.
No other business.
No other business. The week is in the books. We've talked about Ipswich Town making it 2 wins in a row. We've talked about best sporting excuses. We've talked about John Motson. And also, I think the highlight of today's show was this single line. That'd be a tough one for a Nan, that. Have a great start to the week, friends. We'll be back later on this week to speak to you again.